The great hall of the Zareth Empire was unlike anything Captain Elias Ward had ever seen. The ceiling stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth, and glowing crystal towers lined the walls. Dozens of alien nobles, each dressed in shimmering robes and armored cloaks, stood in silence. Their eyes, silver, gold, or glowing red, watched every move. Elias, a human envoy, stood in the middle of it all. His heart pounded, though he kept his face calm. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic mission: bring greetings from Earth, secure trade agreements, and return home. He had not expected to stand before Queen Serenia herself, ruler of the Zareth, one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The queen sat on a throne of black stone carved with ancient runes. Her presence filled the room like a storm. Her tall, elegant frame was wrapped in a robe of flowing white silk, and her eyes glowed faintly violet. Many called her beautiful, but her strength was what made everyone kneel. Elias bowed carefully. "Your Majesty, Earth sends greetings and friendship." Queen Serenia studied him for a long moment. The hall grew so quiet Elias could hear his own breathing. At last the queen rose and stepped down from her throne. Every noble turned their head, confused. She stopped in front of him and held out a small silver ring. The jewel at its center burned with blue fire. "Put the ring on," Serenia said in a clear voice that echoed across the chamber, "and tell everyone we are married, human." The words struck Elias like thunder. Married? His mouth went dry. He looked around, but no one else seemed surprised, only stunned. The nobles whispered, some gasping, some frowning. Elias tried to find his voice. "Your Majesty, I think there must be some mistake. I am here only as an envoy." Her violet eyes did not blink. "There is no mistake. You will put on this ring now." Elias felt his pulse quicken. He understood the danger. To refuse her in front of her court might insult her and all of Zareth. To agree might bind him in some political scheme he did not yet understand. He hesitated, searching her face for meaning. The queen stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "If you want peace, do as I say." Her tone was sharp but not cruel. There was urgency there, as if something larger depended on this act. Elias realized this was not just ceremony. Something more was happening. Slowly he reached out and took the ring. It was cold in his hand, heavier than it looked. He slid it onto his finger. At once the jewel flared with light, filling the hall. Gasps erupted from the nobles. Some bowed, others muttered angrily. The queen turned back to them, her expression calm but commanding. "It is done," she declared. "From this day forward, Elias Ward of Earth is my husband and partner." The hall shook with voices. Some nobles shouted in disbelief. Others cried out blessings. The alien guards struck their spears against the floor, the sound ringing like thunder. Elias stood frozen, his mind racing. He was no husband. He was a diplomat from a small young world. Yet now the most powerful queen in this sector had claimed him. The queen raised her hand and silence fell again. She turned to Elias and gave him the faintest of smiles. It was not warm, but it was full of meaning. "Come, husband," she said, leading him toward the throne. The two sat side by side as the court settled uneasily. Elias tried to calm himself. He whispered out of the side of his mouth, "What have you done?" The queen kept her gaze forward. "I have done what was needed." "Needed for what?" Elias asked softly. "To protect my empire," she replied. Elias had no chance to ask more. One of the nobles stepped forward, his cloak glittering with silver scales. His face was sharp, his tone bitter. "Your Majesty," the noble said, "this cannot be. A human is unworthy of such a bond. The Empire will not accept this insult." Queen Serenia's eyes glowed brighter. "Do you question my will, Lord Therak?" The noble bowed quickly, though his jaw tightened. "I question nothing, my queen." "But others will." She lifted her chin. "Let them. The bond is sealed. The ring has accepted him. That is enough." The noble stepped back, though his glare lingered on Elias. Elias shifted uncomfortably. He felt like a mouse surrounded by hawks. Yet he also felt something strange, responsibility. Whatever game Serenia was playing, he was part of it now. The queen addressed the hall. "The council is dismissed. Leave us." The nobles obeyed slowly, many whispering, some glaring. Soon only the guards remained. The hall grew quiet again, save for the soft hum of crystal lights. Elias turned to her quickly. "All right, I did what you asked. Now tell me, why?" Serenia studied him for a long moment. "Because you are human." Elias blinked. "That is not an answer." "It is enough for now," she said. "You will learn the rest soon. For now you will play your part." He leaned closer, his voice low. "Do you realize what this means? Earth will not understand. Your people already hate it. And me, I'm a stranger here. I don't belong." The Queen's gaze softened for the first time. "That is why you belong. You are different. And difference is what my empire needs." Her words carried weight Elias could not yet grasp. He wanted to protest, to demand clarity, but her tone stopped him. This was not a request. This was destiny, or at least her vision of it. Later, in the private chambers prepared for him, Elias sat by a wide window, staring at the alien city below. Towers of glass and stone stretched into the sky, glowing veins of light running through them. Ships moved silently between platforms, their engines humming like distant thunder. He pressed his fingers against the glowing ring. It still pulsed faintly with blue fire. He wondered what power it held, if any, beyond its symbolism. He thought of Earth, of the blue oceans, of the friends and family he had left behind. Would they ever understand what had just happened? The door opened. Queen Serenia entered, her presence once again filling the room. "You are troubled," she said simply. Elias gave a small laugh. "Troubled? That's a light word. I came here for trade talks. Instead, I'm suddenly your husband." Her lips curved slightly, almost like amusement. "It was the only way." He shook his head. "The only way for what?" Her gaze turned toward the city outside. "My empire is not as strong as it appears. The nobles fight each other more than they serve me. Enemies gather beyond our borders. If I showed weakness today, we would be lost. And marrying me, choosing a human that shows strength?" Elias asked. "It shows unpredictability," she replied. "My enemies cannot guess my next move. My people cannot ignore the bond once the ring has chosen. And you, human, are not bound by our old chains. You think differently. That is what I need." Elias fell silent. For the first time, he saw not just power in her eyes, but weariness. She carried a burden heavier than any crown. He sighed. "I don't know if I can play this role. I'm not a warrior, not a ruler. I'm just me." Serenia's voice grew firm. "You are more than you think. Humans always are." The words echoed in his mind long after she left. He stared at the city lights again, the ring glowing faintly on his hand. For the first time, Elias wondered if perhaps fate had chosen him for something greater than simple diplomacy. The first morning after the strange marriage, Captain Elias Ward awoke in chambers larger than any hall on Earth. The walls were carved with glowing patterns, shifting slowly like rivers of light. The ceiling sparkled with crystal stars, imitating the night sky. He sat on the edge of the wide bed, staring at the silver ring glowing faintly on his finger. Its fire had not faded during the night. It pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding him that his life had changed forever. He rubbed his forehead. "What have I gotten myself into?" The door slid open and 2 attendants entered. They were tall Zareth servants, their faces calm, their robes white. They bowed deeply. "Lord Consort," one of them said in a musical voice, "the Queen requests your presence in the council chamber." Elias blinked. "Lord what?" "Lord Consort," the servant repeated as if the title were natural. Elias sighed. He had no choice. He dressed in the robe provided, a dark blue garment trimmed with silver. When he glanced in the mirror, he hardly recognized himself. He looked less like a diplomat and more like a figure from some alien legend. The council chamber was even grander than the throne hall. A circular table of black stone stood at the center, surrounded by noble lords and ladies. Their robes shimmered in every color, their eyes sharp and suspicious. Guards stood along the wall, silent and still. At the head of the table sat Queen Serenia. Her posture was straight, her gaze commanding. When Elias entered, the murmurs began immediately. "There he is. The human consort. This is madness." Serenia raised her hand and silence returned. "Sit beside me," she said to Elias. He obeyed, though every noble's stare weighed heavily on him. He could feel their doubt, their anger, their disbelief. The Queen spoke. "The bond is sealed. Elias Ward is my husband and partner. His voice will be heard in this chamber." A noble with golden skin leaned forward. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but this is folly. A human knows nothing of our laws, our strategies, our traditions." Another added, "How can one so small and fragile guide an empire such as ours?" The nobles murmured in agreement. Elias clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to protest, but he remembered Serenya's words. Play your part. Serenya's eyes blazed. You measure strength only by size and power, but there are other strengths you cannot see. The human will show them to you. Elias swallowed hard. He had no idea what strength she meant, but he could not sit in silence forever. He cleared his throat. I may not know your traditions, but I do know people. On Earth, we learn to survive not by being the strongest, but by adapting. By finding answers others do not see. Perhaps that is why the Queen trusts me. Some nobles scoffed. Others fell silent, unsure. At least no one laughed aloud. After the meeting ended, Elias walked beside Serenya through the crystal corridors. He could not hold back his frustration any longer. You put me in front of them like some display, he said. I almost made a fool of myself. Serenya glanced at him. You did not. You spoke with honesty. They respect that even if they will not admit it. They hate me, Elias muttered. They fear you, she corrected. That is better, he frowned. Fear me? I'm just a man. What could they fear? That I chose you, she said simply. They do not understand why, and when they cannot understand, they worry. Her words lingered in his mind. Over the next days, Elias learned more about life in the Zareth court. Every hour was filled with ceremonies, meetings, and endless debates. The nobles argued constantly about taxes, territory, military campaigns. Each tried to gain more power for themselves, caring little for unity. Elias noticed how divided they were. Every noble acted as if their house was more important than the empire itself. And though Serenya was strong, even she struggled to hold them together. One evening, Elias walked through the palace gardens where glowing flowers lit the paths like lanterns. He was surprised when a group of alien soldiers approached him. Their armor shone with silver plates, their faces scarred and proud. The leader saluted. Lord Consort, we are honored. Elias shook his head. Don't call me that. I'm no lord, the soldier smiled faintly. Perhaps not. But you are the Queen's choice. That makes you important. They spoke for a while, and Elias asked about their lives. He learned how soldiers were treated more like tools than people, how their loyalty was often taken for granted. Elias listened with patience, something few nobles ever did. By the end of the talk, the soldiers seemed more relaxed, even friendly. That night, Elias realized something. He might never match the nobles in wealth or tradition, but he could win loyalty in another way, by caring about the people themselves. 1 week later, trouble arrived. During another council meeting, 2 nobles shouted over land rights. Their voices rose and their hands reached for their weapons. Guards tensed, ready to act. Elias stood quickly. Stop, he shouted. His voice echoed across the chamber. The nobles glared at him. This is none of your concern, human. Elias met their gaze firmly. It is my concern. You speak of land while enemies wait beyond your borders. You waste energy fighting each other instead of standing together. On Earth we have a saying, a house divided cannot stand. Your empire will fall if you keep tearing it apart from the inside. Silence filled the chamber. Some nobles looked embarrassed. Others looked angry. But none could deny his words. Serenya's lips curved in the faintest smile. My husband speaks truth. Will you ignore wisdom simply because it comes from a human? No one answered. Slowly, the argument dissolved. Afterward, Serenya leaned close and whispered, You are learning. Later, in her private study, Elias finally asked what he had been holding back. Why me, truly? Out of all the leaders, all the warriors, all the nobles, you chose me. Why? She set down her quill and looked at him. Because humans are free in ways my people are not. The Zareth are bound by tradition, by rigid ways of thinking. We repeat the past even when it leads to ruin. But your people imagine new paths. You see possibilities we are blind to. That is what I need. Elias felt both humbled and overwhelmed. You don't know if I can live up to that. She studied him carefully. I believe you can. And if you fail, then at least you will fail while trying to change what must be changed. That is more than most of my nobles would dare. For the first time, Elias felt a spark of pride. Perhaps she was not wrong. But not all were convinced. That night, as Elias walked back to his chambers, a shadow moved in the corridor. Suddenly, a blade of energy slashed toward him. He barely dodged, stumbling back. A masked figure lunged again. Elias grabbed a decorative staff from the wall and blocked the strike. The assassin pressed hard, sparks flying as the blade bit into the staff. Elias's arm shook, but he refused to fall. Why? He gasped. The assassin's voice was cold. The queen shames us. The human must die. Elias kicked forward, knocking the assassin back. He swung the staff wildly, forcing space. Guards rushed in at last, capturing the attacker before he could strike again. Breathing hard, Elias leaned against the wall. His hands shook, but he was alive. When Serenia arrived moments later, her eyes blazed with fury. "You dare attack him in my own palace?" She hissed at the guards, dragging the assassin away. She turned to Elias. For a moment, her hard mask broke and concern showed. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "No, but I think your nobles really don't like me." She almost smiled. "Good, that means they fear you more with each passing day." Elias laughed weakly. "That's a strange way to see it." "It is the only way," she replied. That night, as Elias lay awake, the truth became clear. He was not simply a pawn in Serenia's game. He was now part of something larger. The nobles feared him. The soldiers respected him. And the queen believed in him. Slowly, he looked down at the ring glowing on his finger. He whispered to himself, "Maybe this is where I'm meant to be." The days following the assassination attempt were tense. Captain Elias Ward could feel the eyes of the nobles on him wherever he went. In the council chamber, in the gardens, even during meals, whispers followed. Some bowed politely, but their eyes carried coldness. Others didn't bother hiding their hatred. Yet outside the palace, something different was happening. Ordinary citizens and soldiers began to speak of the human consort with curiosity, even respect. Word spread of how he had survived an assassin's blade and faced the nobles with bold honesty. Many had expected him to die quickly or be swept aside. Instead, he still walked beside their queen. One evening, Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The towers glowed with streams of blue energy, and airships moved like silent birds between platforms. Queen Serenia joined him, her robe brushing softly against the stone. "You are becoming a symbol," she said quietly. Elias raised an eyebrow. "A symbol of what?" "A human who doesn't know when to run away." "A symbol of change," Serenia replied. "My people see that you survive, that you speak with courage. Even those who hate you cannot ignore you. That makes you dangerous." "Dangerous to who?" he asked. "To those who plot against me," she answered. Her violet eyes narrowed as she looked across the city. "And to those who plot against us both." The next day, Serenia ordered extra guards for Elias. Still, he refused to hide away. Instead, he began walking through the city with her blessing. He wanted to understand the empire not from its marble halls but from its streets. In the marketplaces, aliens of every kind shouted their wares. Traders sold glowing fruits, mechanical pets, and crystals that sang when touched. Children laughed and pointed at Elias, whispering, "The human husband," with wide eyes. Elias spoke with shopkeepers, asking about their lives. He listened to their worries: high taxes, endless wars between noble houses, and corruption in the courts. Many were surprised he cared at all. Few nobles ever listened. When he returned to the palace, he shared what he learned with Serenia. "Your people are tired," he said. "They want a leader who listens. If you give them that, they'll follow you more than any noble." Serenia studied him thoughtfully. "You see truths they would never speak to me. You hear their voices. That is your gift." But while Elias and Serenia tried to build trust, the shadows grew darker. Late one night, as the queen reviewed reports in her private study, Elias entered carrying a data slate. "I think you should see this," he said. The report detailed unusual movements along the empire's borders. Small outposts had gone silent. Patrol fleets reported strange ships watching them before vanishing into deep space. Serenia frowned. "The Veyrak Dominion," she whispered. Elias tilted his head. "Who are they?" Her expression hardened. "Our oldest enemy, ruthless, patient. They wait for weakness, then strike without mercy. If they are testing our borders now, it means they believe we are divided." Elias leaned against the table. "And they're not wrong. Your nobles argue more than they plan. If they can't unite, the Veyrak will find an easy victory." Serenia nodded grimly. "That is why they fuel rebellion here. If they cannot defeat us from the outside, they will break us from within." The next council meeting was louder than ever. Lord Therak, the silver-cloaked noble who had opposed Serenia from the start, slammed his fist on the table. "The queen weakens us by tying herself to a human. Already the Veyrak circle us like predators, and she insults our traditions with this farce. Another noble shouted, "Perhaps the Veyrak are right. Perhaps new leadership is needed." The chamber erupted with voices, anger filling the air. Guards tightened their grips on their spears. Elias stood suddenly. "Enough!" His voice rang through the chamber. The nobles quieted, surprised by his boldness. "You fight each other while enemies prepare to invade," Elias said. "You waste time with pride while your people suffer."
Is this what leadership means to you?
"To argue until your empire burns." Some nobles looked away ashamed. Others sneered. Theric smirked. "And what would you do, human? Will you save us with your soft words and small hands?" Elias held his gaze. "I would stand with my people. I would fight for them, not for my pride. If you cannot see that, then perhaps you are unworthy of calling yourselves rulers." The chamber fell into silence. Even those who hated him could not deny the power in his words. Serenia rose beside him. "My husband speaks true. If any among you wish to challenge my decision, know this. You do not only challenge me, you challenge the will of the bond itself. And you will answer for it." Her voice thundered like a storm. The nobles lowered their heads, unwilling to push further, for now. That night Elias walked alone in the palace gardens, his mind heavy. He wondered if he had gone too far, but then he heard footsteps behind him. It was one of the soldiers he had spoken with before. The man bowed. "Lord Consort, many of us have heard your words. You speak what the nobles dare not. For that you have our loyalty." Others stepped out from the shadows, soldiers in plain armor. They bowed as well. Elias felt a chill. He had not asked for this. Yet here they were, pledging themselves not just to the queen, but to him. He nodded slowly. "Then stand ready. Dark times are coming." The next morning, Serenia called Elias to a hidden chamber deep below the palace. There, glowing crystals lit walls covered in ancient carvings. "This is the Hall of Bonds," she explained. "Here, rulers of Zareth swore their oaths, sealed with the rings of power. Few outside the royal bloodline have ever entered." Elias looked around in awe. "Why bring me here?" Serenia touched one of the carvings. "Because you must understand what you carry. That ring on your hand is not just a symbol. It is alive with ancient energy. It recognizes bonds of loyalty, truth, and will. That is why it accepted you." Elias stared at the glowing jewel on his finger. "So it really means we're—" "Yes," Serenia said softly. "It means you are bound to me as I am bound to you, not only in name but in spirit." For a moment the weight of it all pressed on Elias. He was not just playing a role. He was part of something older and deeper than he imagined. But their moment of quiet was shattered when an urgent messenger arrived. "My queen." The soldier gasped, kneeling. "The border outpost of Dara has fallen. Survivors report Veyrak warships, larger than any we've seen before. They are moving fast." Serenia's face grew hard. "So it begins." Elias clenched his fists. He had known it would come, but so soon? Serenia looked at him. "You see now why I chose you. The Empire will not survive if we fight as we always have. We must fight differently, and that is why I need you at my side." Elias took a deep breath. He was just a man from Earth, a diplomat, not a general. But when he looked at the queen, at the soldiers who now believed in him, he knew he could not back away. He nodded firmly. "Then let's prepare. If the Veyrak want to test us, they'll find out what humans can do." That night, while the city slept, shadows still moved in the palace. In hidden chambers, nobles gathered around Lord Theric. "The queen has tied us to a human," Theric said bitterly. "And now she drags us into war. She will destroy us all." "Unless we act," the nobles whispered their agreement. Plans were made in the darkness, plots to strike when the queen and her human consort were most vulnerable. War was coming, but Elias and Serenia would soon learn that enemies did not only gather at the gates. They were already inside the walls. The first attacks came before dawn. The sky over the Zareth Empire lit up with flashes of energy as Veyrak warships descended from the dark of space. Alarms blared throughout the palace, and the city stirred in fear. Captain Elias Ward stood at the balcony beside Queen Serenia, watching the enemy fleet approach. His heart raced, but his mind worked quickly. Unlike the nobles, who would follow traditional strategies, Elias saw patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities the Zareth had never considered. "Your Majesty," he said, "we cannot fight as we always have. The Veyrak expect rigid formations and predictable attacks. We need something different." Serenia nodded. I trust you. Show me the human way. Elias turned to the generals, who looked skeptical, even insulted. Listen to me, he said. Formations and strict rules will get your fleets destroyed. We will fight smarter. We will divide their attention, mislead them, and strike where they are weakest. You follow my plan and we can win this. A few commanders whispered among themselves. One, a veteran named Lord Kale, spoke up. This human dares to change centuries of strategy? Serenia's voice cut through the murmurs. He is my consort. His plan is my command. Follow it or step aside. The generals nodded reluctantly. They may not have trusted him fully, but they could not argue with the queen. Elias spent the next hours coordinating the defense. Using data from patrol ships, he plotted ambush points, escape routes, and decoy signals. Instead of placing all ships at the front line, he split them into smaller, flexible units, hiding many in asteroid fields and behind gas clouds. Surprise is our ally, he told the fleet commanders. Patience and timing will decide this battle, not sheer firepower. By mid-morning, the first clashes began. The Veyrak expected a traditional defense, but instead found empty space where they expected fleets. They were caught off guard by sudden attacks from hidden units, small squadrons striking quickly and vanishing into the void. Elias watched from the command center aboard the Queen's flagship, his pulse steady. He had never commanded a fleet before, not in real battle, but human intuition guided him. He noticed patterns, predicted enemy moves, and gave orders with precision. Meanwhile, Queen Serenia moved among the command staff and soldiers, giving instructions, calming fears, and showing visible trust in Elias's plan. Her confidence reassured the troops. Do not doubt him, she said, raising her hand. He is human, yes, but he is not weak. He sees what we cannot. Follow him and fight with honor. The soldiers cheered. For the first time, Elias felt the weight of belief. The loyalty of soldiers and the trust of a queen. He could not fail. Hours passed. The Veyrak fleet was larger, their warships more advanced, but the human-inspired tactics began to work. Several Veyrak vessels, thinking the capital fleet was overextended, attacked smaller units that had been waiting in ambush. Energy blasts struck at unexpected angles, disabling engines and causing chaos among the enemy ranks. Lord Kale, the skeptical commander, could not hide his astonishment. The human, it works. It actually works, he muttered to himself. Elias did not have time to enjoy the moment. He monitored every squadron, adjusting movements, giving orders with rapid precision. Each choice mattered. Every delay, even a second, could be fatal. In the city below, citizens watched the sky. Explosions lit the horizon and shields around the metropolis glowed blue. Despite the terror, people whispered about the human consort. Many had expected him to fail, but now he seemed almost heroic. A small child pointed to the sky. Look, the human is helping. Elias heard stories like this later from the soldiers who had seen his decisions in action. It gave him strength. He realized that courage and thinking differently could inspire more than firepower ever could. By afternoon, the Veyrak attempted a direct assault on the capital. Massive warships moved into formation, their weapons charging. The nobles panicked. We cannot hold them, shouted one. Hold your positions, Elias ordered. Use the decoy units. Focus on their leaders first. Remember, chaos is our weapon. The fleet obeyed. Hidden squadrons launched strikes on the enemy command ships, forcing the rest of the fleet to scatter. The human way, unpredictable, adaptive, and bold, was turning the tide. Serenia watched him with pride. You are changing the course of this war, she said softly. And you do it without fear. Elias glanced at her. I'm not fearless. I just cannot let fear control my decisions. Her eyes glowed faintly violet. And that is what makes humans remarkable. Night fell, but the battle continued. The sky burned with energy blasts, and the smell of ozone drifted even into the command center. Reports came of enemy ships retreating, many damaged beyond repair. But the Veyrak were clever. They had reinforcements waiting beyond sensors' range, ready to strike where the fleet was weakest. Elias stayed calm. We need a final move, he said. If we wait, they'll regroup. We strike now together. He led the fleet in a coordinated maneuver no Zareth commander had ever attempted. The unit split, flanking the enemy from multiple angles, using speed and precision rather than sheer force. Veyrak ships were caught in crossfire, and one by one they fell. At last, the enemy fleet retreated into the dark of space, leaving the Zareth Empire battered but victorious. After the battle, the fleet returned to the capital. Soldiers cheered as they landed. Many carried stories of the human consort who had led them to victory in a way no Zareth general would dare. Elias disembarked, exhausted but alert. Serenia met him at the palace gates, her presence calm but commanding. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have done well, Elias," she said. "Today you did what few Zareth could imagine. You led not by power but by insight." Elias shook his head. "I just did what humans do, adapt, survive, and try to see beyond what is expected." Serenia's lips curved in a small smile. "And that is why I chose you. Today you are not just my husband, human. You are a true partner to the Empire." For the first time, Elias felt a deep sense of belonging. Not because of the ring or the title or the Queen's command, but because he had made a difference. He had proven that humans, though small and young in the galaxy, could change the course of history. But even in victory, the shadows lingered. Lord Theric and his allies had not forgotten their hatred. They whispered in secret chambers, plotting to undermine Elias and the Queen. Elias knew the battle outside was over, but the struggle inside the Empire was just beginning. He would need to continue earning trust, facing threats both hidden and open, and proving that humanity had a place among the stars, not only as observers but as leaders and innovators. That night, Elias stood on the balcony once more. The city below was calm, lights twinkling in the darkness. Ships returned from battle, their engines humming softly. He looked at the glowing ring on his finger, its blue fire steady and strong. "I may be just a human," he whispered, "but I will do whatever it takes to protect this empire, and to protect her." Behind him, Serenia stepped quietly onto the balcony. "And I will stand with you," she said. "Together, human, we can face whatever comes next." He turned to her, and for the first time he felt not fear or uncertainty, but determination. Together they would face the Veyrak, the nobles, and the shadows that threatened the Zareth Empire. The human way, bold, unexpected, and fearless, had shown its power, and this was only the beginning. The morning after the Veyrak fleet retreated, the Zareth Empire was quiet, almost unnervingly so. The city still bore the marks of battle. Smoke drifted from broken ships and streets were strewn with debris. Citizens ventured out cautiously, whispering about the human who had led their defense. Captain Elias Ward stood on a balcony overlooking the capital. His mind was heavy with responsibility. Victory had been won, but the Empire was far from safe. The Veyrak could return in greater numbers, and within the palace enemies still lurked. Queen Serenia appeared beside him, her robe flowing like liquid silver. Her eyes scanned the horizon, sharp and thoughtful. "The Veyrak will return," she said, "but next time they will expect the human to fail." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we'll show them what humans can do. We won't fight like the Zareth expect. We'll fight smart, fast, and together." Serenia nodded. "And we will. But there is another danger you must face, Elias. The nobles who opposed your presence, they will not forgive their embarrassment. Some may try to strike when we are weakest." He turned to her, resolve hardening. "Then we meet them head-on. They will not control this empire while we stand together." The first council meeting after the battle was tense. Lords and ladies who had mocked Elias before now watched him with a mix of fear and curiosity. Many had lost ships, resources, and honor in the recent conflict. Theric, the silver-cloaked noble who had always despised him, stood first. "Your victory, human, does not erase your ignorance. You follow your instincts, yes, but leadership is more than clever tricks. You are an outsider." Elias met his glare calmly. "Perhaps, but an outsider sees what those inside cannot. The Veyrak tested our empire, and we survived because because we acted together. Your pride almost destroyed us. Learn from this. Loyalty and courage matter more than titles and tradition." The room was silent. Even those who had doubted him could not deny the truth. Serenia added, her voice ringing. "He is right. The empire cannot thrive while blinded by old rivalries. We must work together. That is my command." A murmur ran through the nobles. Some nodded reluctantly. Others scowled but said nothing. Elias realized that respect was growing, though slowly. Days passed and Elias worked tirelessly alongside Serenia. They traveled across the empire, visiting cities, outposts, and military installations. Everywhere they went, soldiers and citizens saw the bond between queen and human consort. They witnessed his determination, his willingness to learn, and his care for those who served the empire. Elias noticed how small acts made a big difference. Listening to a commander's concern, helping repair a damaged ship, or simply talking to soldiers about their lives earned him trust faster than any decree. The human's way, direct, practical, and sincere, won loyalty that tradition alone never could. One afternoon, Elias and Sirenia visited the academy where young pilots trained. Students lined the courtyard, bowing in respect as they saw him approach. He smiled and waved. "You must learn more than your instructors teach," he told the students. "Observe, think, and adapt. Battles are not won by following rules blindly. They are won by understanding the world around you." Many of the students whispered among themselves. Some were impressed. Some were skeptical. But all were listening. Sirenia watched from the side, quietly proud. "Your influence grows," she said. Elias shrugged. "I'm just showing them what humans do best." But even as peace seemed to return, the shadow of rebellion remained. Therak and his allies plotted in secret. They saw Elias not as a hero but as a threat to their power. Late one night, Elias was awakened by a warning. A small group of conspirators had gathered near the palace gates, intending to strike the queen and seize control while the empire still recovered from battle. Without hesitation, Elias donned light armor and took a squad of loyal soldiers to intercept them. Moving through the quiet halls, he relied on observation, intuition, and surprise, methods he had learned on Earth, adapted to Zareth tactics. The conspirators were confident, thinking humans could be easily trapped. But Elias anticipated their moves, blocking escape routes and cutting off reinforcements. Within minutes, the would-be rebels were captured. Sirenia, who had watched from the shadows, emerged quietly. "You act like a true leader," she said. "Not for yourself, but for the people. That is why they trust you." Elias looked down at the captives. "I just do what must be done. The empire is bigger than any of us." The next morning, the council met again. This time, the mood was different. The nobles who had plotted were present but silent, aware that any further treachery would be met with swift consequences. Sirenia addressed the room. "The empire has survived a great test twice now. Our strength lies not in fear or tradition but in unity. Elias Ward has shown us that even a human, an outsider, can contribute to our survival. Let that be a lesson." The room remained quiet, but Elias noticed subtle nods from some nobles. Slowly, respect was forming. Not fear, not blind obedience, but true acknowledgement of his value. As weeks passed, the empire began to recover. Trade resumed, ships were repaired, and soldiers trained with renewed focus. Elias continued to lead with insight, often proposing bold new strategies, some for defense, some for exploration. One day, Sirenia took him aside. "There is something you should see," she said. She led him to the top of the palace tower, where the city spread like a sea of lights. "Look at them," she said. "Your presence has changed more than just the council or the fleets. You've changed how my people see the future. They see hope, courage, and possibility." Elias looked at the city below. Children played in streets, vendors laughed as they sold their wares, and soldiers trained in formation, alert but confident. It was a living testament to human ingenuity and bravery. He turned to Sirenia. "I never imagined humans could do this. Change an entire empire." "You have," she said softly. "And you are only beginning." The final test came when intelligence reported that the Veyrak were regrouping for another strike, larger than before. Their fleet approached from the outer sectors, confident in their previous advantage. Elias and Sirenia prepared the empire once more. But this time it was different. The nobles who had doubted him now followed his guidance, if reluctantly. Soldiers believed in his tactics. The citizens watched, ready to support their empire in any way they could. Elias addressed the commanders. "They will think we are weak. They will try to divide us. But we are stronger than they expect. Together we will show them what the Zareth can do, with humans and aliens united." Sirenia placed her hand on his shoulder. "We will face them together, not as queen and consort, but as partners." He nodded, determination burning in his chest. The battle began. Elias's strategies, refined over months of observation and practice, were executed flawlessly. Fleets moved in ways the Veyrak could not anticipate. Ambushes struck key vessels, and coordination between ships and ground defenses was seamless. In the heart of the fight, Elias noticed a massive Veyrak dreadnought trying to break through to the capital. Using rapid calculations, he guided a small elite squadron to flank it. while the main fleet distracted its attention. The plan worked perfectly, disabling the dreadnought and forcing the rest of the fleet to retreat. Victory was complete. The Zareth Empire had survived another test, stronger and more united than ever. After the battle, Elias and Serenia addressed the Empire. Citizens gathered in the streets, cheering, waving banners, and celebrating the human and queen who had saved them. Serenia raised Elias's hand. "This human is not just my consort," she declared. "He is a protector, a guide, and a partner. He has shown us all that courage, intelligence, and loyalty are not bound by species. Humanity has left its mark on the stars." The crowd erupted, cheering louder than ever. Elias, overwhelmed, felt a strange warmth. He had come from a small planet, thought insignificant in the galaxy, and now stood as a symbol of hope. Theric and his allies were present, forced to bow in respect. They could not deny the truth. Humanity, through Elias, had changed the course of history. That night, Elias and Serenia stood on the palace balcony, looking over the lights of a safe, thriving empire. "You did it," Serenia said softly. "You proved that humans are not just observers. You are innovators, leaders, and partners in this galaxy." Elias smiled faintly. "I just did what humans do, adapt, think, and never give up. But I could not have done it without you." Serenia touched his hand, the ring glowing softly. "No, we did it together. Humanity's mark is here, and it will remain for generations." Elias looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth, of the Empire, and of the future. For the first time, he felt at home in the galaxy, not just as a human, but as a part of something larger, a force of courage and hope that could change worlds. And with that, he knew the journey had only just begun.